Hey, it's Jordan. Delighted to be joined by Delilah Barrios. You are a mother in Texas who is running as a Green Party candidate for the governor of Texas. And obviously, the governor of Texas is in the news right now. I wanted to start. You've lived in Texas all your life. You have a really powerful story that I want to get to, but just your reaction to the carnage that we saw this week and basically the same old response from Governor Abbott and Republicans in Texas.
Um, so I work in a hospital and we're trained to handle trauma and specifically surgery. So we heard, I think around the same time other people did, there were casualties and there were children that had been shot at a school. Um, we did not take any of those patients, and we know San Antonio took some of them, but the early reports was just casualties, shooting at an elementary school, and that the gunman was dead. That's kind of how everybody first heard. And yeah, my stomach just dropped. Like I'm a mother, I have children, and it's not hard to imagine what kind of damage is done to these victims because it's more common than you'd like to hear. Violence is no stranger to people that live in Texas, so it hurts. It hurts. Everybody's feeling it, and everybody's hurt and angry, and everybody wants to know why. Why does this happen? And that's a conversation that a lot of people are willing to have.
And obviously, you could say Abbott is directly responsible because he changed the law allowing 18-year-olds to buy these kind of weapons. He's done a lot of other things to loosen gun laws while tightening, obviously, laws on abortion and other things. Can you kind of talk about what inspired you to run? Because obviously it's an uphill climb as a Green Party candidate against a, up until now, fairly popular Republican governor.
Um, yeah, I am an activist and I'm indigenous, and most of my frustration came from our limited power as citizens to influence how things happen in our country and in our homeland. So that's a driving factor for me. And as a socialist, I understand that a well-planned society works better, and people that have resources where they need do better. We talk about healthcare a lot. As I'm a healthcare worker, and that specifically, if you look at the deaths to lack of healthcare and lack of health insurance in this state, the I'm sorry, the death rates of mothers and women specifically, it's pretty high in a lot of areas. I hate when these things happen because it's really lovely to see the community come together and offer support. I mean, they had to turn down blood donations because they had so many. But I hate that there's a tragedy that causes that. You know what I'm saying? Most of the time, we're all very distracted and focused on our own things in our own small communities. But if you look at the big picture, there's a lot of problems and there's a lot of things that need attention to them. And so my goal was to bring more attention to the solutions and not just the problems themselves.
Dream scenario, you actually got on the debate stage with Governor Abbott, Beto O'Rourke. Specifically, what would be your message to Governor Abbott, who obviously would tout all the money they've put into school safety and mental health, even though they cut mental health resources? What would be your direct message to the governor if you were on the stage with him about? I mean, as of now, there's nothing stopping another mass shooting in Texas at a school, grocery store, wherever.
He has a very clear history of not caring about communities, especially communities of color, and especially people our most underprivileged in our society. He only cares about the right wing rich people. He only cares about his donors. It's very clear to see that. Nobody should be able to call him pro-life because he doesn't value life. It wasn't that long ago that he tried to kick disabled kids off of CHIP health insurance in this state. We remember his history and we know what his path is, and it's not for us. It's not for the people. So he's just a liar and a fraud.
Should add he's trying to criminalize parents with transgender kids now too.
There's that. There's the assault against parents in general. I mean, we've got patients that right now having to leave the state for preventative care or for just direct medical care that they need. They don't even understand conception. They don't understand life at all. They're so far removed from the struggle of actual citizens. You know, everybody that's mad at him, I support because you have every right to be mad at him. He's not doing enough, and it's pretty clear that he's not willing to.
And if you were on the stage, what would you say to Beto O'Rourke as far as why you're a stronger candidate than him against Governor Abbott?
I suppose that I don't have any investments in real estate industry to further commit economic warfare on unsuspecting communities should be enough, but I'll elaborate on the fact that I'm not far removed from the struggles of working class and poor people like he is.
Mm-hmm. And can you kind of talk about Texas? Because it obviously has a reputation as kind of a Republican bastion, a lot of old white cowboys, but it's becoming more urban, I would say. There's progressive pockets, and Bernie Sanders did pretty well among Latinos. Can you kind of talk about are people in Texas okay with bazooka guns, even though they are obviously guns are part of the culture there. Is there appetite in Texas for gun reform, healthcare advances, or is just the culture war there so powerful that nothing major can actually change?
No, that's not true. The culture war is not that powerful. Even, I mean, as you mentioned, Greg Abbott is losing his base a bit. Gladly, one of the men running against him is a pretty outwardly racist, Don Huffines, and he did pretty well, surprisingly, but he didn't win the nomination. So there are various culture wars in this state. You know what I'm saying? Most regular people, I work with a lot of doctors and nurses and a lot of people who are very dedicated to their communities. They don't want to hear the term gun reform. They don't really want to hear the term. They don't want to have their rights taken away because fearful people want to stay armed. I mean, that's really the root of the problem, right? You have people that are scared all the time, that they lose their sense of humanity, right? And that's a big issue. And most people that I talked to were just upset that Greg Abbott made it so that 18-year-olds could buy a gun. They're like, why can't this kid go buy a drink but he can go buy a gun? You know what I'm saying? And so they're noticing the hypocrisy in these laws. For instance, if you consider just the military industrial complex and how most of our nation's resources go directly to that, how could you expect it not to influence, young people? Most of the people that I know that went to the military did so because of poverty. They had to go, right? Because they couldn't afford college and they couldn't afford, making a life for themselves. So it's all related. And I think to discredit those of us who are willing to have those conversations is complicated and harsh, really. 'Cause a lot of the people in Texas are like that mom who was arrested momentarily at the school and then convinced them to let her go and went and saved her own children herself. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are willing to risk themselves for other people, not even their own children. Most people, I saw it as a healthcare provider with COVID. People would risk their own safety more often than not. So to label us all as like bigots or we're just a red state has always rubbed me the wrong way, you know, because I know a lot of really good, decent people.
Mm-hmm. And can you kind of talk about, it seems to me this governor, uh, he's huffing about mental health, even though he has cut mental health resources over
Right.
the years. You got Ted Cruz talking about, well, the problem is we have too many doors at schools. I mean, you can't have one door at a school for obvious reasons, fire hazards, other things. The obvious, you know, other countries have mental health problems. They don't have mass shootings every week.
No, they don't.
And then, frankly, people will give me grief for having you. You're taking away votes from Beto O'Rourke. Maybe Beto O'Rourke is sincere on the gun issue, but on other things, he has seemed to me to be kind of your dime of a dozen corporatist. So it seems like you either have a Republican who, whatever the reason, bought off by the NRA or just scared of, losing his base in Texas, and a Democrat who I think is sincere on the gun issue, but I don't know if he's going to have the stones if he gets elected to do much. Where does that leave a Green Party candidate who, obviously it's an uphill climb to be competitive?
It is nothing but an uphill climb, and I don't care. Really, a lot of I'll just say, like, the people in my community have been very supportive. So supportive, they don't care what ticket I decided to run on. I'll say, like, they trust me.
Can you share what community that is so people know where in Texas?
Well, I live in Hays County. It's a large, very gerrymandered county, and we've got a lot of central hubs, and I'm pretty close to one of this. Like, I work at a hospital, so people will probably be able to tell where I am. And that's my community. This is the people. I worked in Austin forever, and I recently relocated, to a smaller place so that way I could afford to live and raise my family here and still have a job. So Green Party ticket, I mean, thank God people donated enough money for us to pay the ballot access fee, because when you talk about things like poverty, that's a dilemma, right? Like, I'm not a rich person. I'm a working class person, and I had to beg people for money just to be able to put my name on the ballot. And enough people supported me that we made it happen, and I'm grateful for that, but I also have to deal with the fact that I'm not a millionaire. I don't have endless, staff or people that can do all these things for me. So what you see is what you get. I'm just a genuine person who cares about the things that you care about, because I live here too. I'm just as mad as the rest of you. I'm livid with the police department in Uvalde. I cannot stress how angry I am and how frustrated I feel as a parent, to know that they'd spent their energy and their resources on keeping children from their parents in their time of need. And, politics aside, everybody I know wants to do something to help those people. You know what I'm saying? And there's only a few who think that, oh, this is a good time to campaign. Mm-hmm. And I want to distance myself from those, because I don't think that that's right. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's right to just use these tragedies for your own agendas. And it is absolutely a struggle, but I don't care.
I take it you're talking about Beto O'Rourke, if we're keeping it real.
I was actually a little bit disgusted. I had some people on my campaign team were like, you should have done that. And I was like, no, I'm sorry that you don't know that that's not right, but no, it's not how you treat people. We're neighbors. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm not coming to help you directly, I'm not going to consider myself invited to your home. That's just how it is. You're not supposed to. Anyway, it's a struggle that's valid, because, ballot access and the powerful corporate duopoly affect all of us, whether we realize it or not. And people need somebody who's going to be willing to struggle for them, Well,
I think you brought up something, and, I think terms really matter. Like, the words, right? So, for example, I don't call it gentrification because when people hear that, I think their eyes just gloss over. I just call it economic terrorism because that's what gentrification is.
Yeah.
But gentrification, it's kind of the same thing. People hear it and it's like either they don't know what it is or it doesn't evoke emotional response. But gentrification, honestly, particularly in Texas, is what keeps a rigged system and really minority rule thriving, because Texas has been gerrymandered to the point where, I mean, elections are just basically predetermined for certain parties, certain dynasties. Can you kind of talk about, in addition to ballot access and, financially, qualifying as a candidate, how difficult it is because of gerrymandering there?
Yeah, I like that you call it economic warfare. I don't know that I can use it as effectively as you do, but I do like that term because it is violence against people. And I think with a lot of the reactionaries pushing, the great replacement theory, I'm like, why did you not? Are you against colonialism or are you for it? Because I need to know. My community needs to know. My people need to know. Where do you stand? Because it depends on who's talking sometimes, where people stand. I feel like when Bernie Sanders was talking a lot, people were standing on the line of socialism, on the line of human rights should be guaranteed, and when they hear somebody like Joe Biden talking, they don't even know where the line is anymore. No, like most people don't want to talk. They're like, oh, these poor I have talked to a lot of activists and reporters about Ukraine, and it's not a new issue. It's been an ongoing crisis for many years, and we're sending billions of dollars away for that purpose of bloating their military budget, and we don't have kids. The median income in Uvalde is less than $40,000. So,
and 40% of the budget goes to police.
There you go. I mean, I know it's not impressive, but I mean, I personally was down there at the Capitol when we were doing Black Lives Matter protests, and I saw and reported on the police with their kettling techniques. We had to set up like people down the street on bikes to make sure that people weren't going to be harassed by police. Like, they don't care about us. They're not here for us. And I'm the only person that's going to say that publicly because it's the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's talk a little bit more about you. You grew up in, I guess, what they call the Valley in Texas. You're a hospital worker, so I'd like to hear more about what you've done at the hospitals. And, just kind of reading up, you've lost friends over some of your stances, Black Lives Matter, other things. Can you kind of talk about your personal background a little bit?
Yes, I was born in Brownsville, Texas, and I grew up down. I have family that still lives in Port Isabel, which is everybody knows where South Padre Island is because they go there for a vacation. But you have to go through Port Isabel to get there, and it's a fairly poor community. I grew up in a very small place, and we didn't have central air or heating, and and it wasn't until I moved to Austin, Texas, that I even understood that there was a difference in quality of life expectations. You know what I'm saying? I had no idea. So yeah, I have indigenous relatives who spent time with me, teaching me some of our lessons and some of the things that are really important as you go forward on your path. Like, you're a representative of your community anyway. And I like to joke, because people like to, I consider myself Latina and indigenous because I don't see a way to separate or only claim one identity. I think it's a little weird for me to try to have to do that just for convenience. I'm not going to do that. But Latinas are often like, oh, you're so quick and you're so feisty and angry. And it's just like, because we're raised to be on your toes. You're raised to be paying attention and quick-witted, and I don't know. We're just a very different lot. But most people from my community, and I have a mixed community now of all different. I wasn't a minority when I was little too, because most of my community was brown. And so it's weird when I moved to Austin, and I had to understand that like I was a minority. I thought, it was just different. And I don't think people understand really our history in this state, or are willing to even confront it, which is, again, part of the problem. But yeah, I just have always been a caretaker. I always took care of people when they were sick. If somebody got hurt, I took care of them. That was always my path. So I'm gonna drink some water. Yeah, my mother, she's had cancer a few times. And so I stayed with her in the hospital, and I remember I met a hospital worker there who was like, "Yeah, I can check on your mom for you. I'll let you know how she's doing." And this was back in the day. I was like 15 years old. Like now they text you and like, "This is how your family member's doing." But then you had to wait until like a doctor rounded or someone else came around. Anyway, and he was able to just update me that she was in recovery and she was doing fine. Her surgery went well. And I just remember being very intrigued by that. Like, that's such a vulnerable place to be, when you're going under anesthesia and people are taking care of you, and you're having surgery, which is one of the most invasive things you can experience. And that level of privacy given to people and that level of care given was very intriguing to me because I wanted to know more, And so after her surgery, I started looking into that. And yeah, that's how I basically came to the path that I wanted to be a CST, which is a certified surgical tech. So in the movies, when the doctors like, "Give me a scalpel," like we're the ones giving them the scalpel, and we're the ones helping them maintain, make sure we don't have too much blood loss and things like that. So we're very specifically trained in that process. That's what I do for my job. That's what I've done for the last 18 years.
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you, because I'm sure you've noticed kind of on the left since Bernie's last campaign, kind of there's been a splintering. You have some people that are just like, burn it down, screw electoral politics. Some people, I don't care if Jesus is running. I'm not voting for Jesus if he runs as a Democrat. Some people just checked out completely, and some people just, electoral politics is a dead end. I'm just going to get involved with direct action kind of stuff. Obviously, you're running as a candidate, so you don't believe electoral politics is dead. But what do you say to people? Because I've seen a lot of it after the shooting too. Just more and more understandable rage and hopelessness that nothing can change. What's your message? Because you are an activist.
Nobody really thinks something's possible until it happens. And most people don't realize what they're truly capable of until they need to be capable of something. So if you want to throw your hands up and give up, I'm not going to tell you not to do that. I'm not going to tell people that don't want to vote that they have to, because that's not, you know what I mean? That's your right and your privilege. And if you don't want to use those for yourself and your community, that's your decision. But I would love to see something else being done then. If you're refusing to vote, how are you helping? Because we all have a debt to pay. We all have to participate in one way or another. So let it be meaningful. If you don't want to do this route, I can understand, but I'm running so that people have a better choice for themselves. It's not for me. I'm not running because I want attention. I'm running so that people can have somebody speaking to their needs. And I think that when you get to a point where you don't think anybody should be speaking to people's needs or doing anything to change them, that's very depressing. And I wonder if you are capable of helping anymore. And that's sad to me. It's because everybody's capable of helping. Everybody has a path to help somebody else. Just ignoring the problem isn't going to do anything about it.
Thank you so much for taking the time, Delilah Barrios. Where can people find out more about your campaign if they want to support you?
Yes, if you do want to support this struggle, thank you. We have a website, DelilahForTexas.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So reach out. We're happy to come to where you are and talk to you about your needs, because that's what we're here for.
Great. Thanks so much. Let's keep in touch, and good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.